To be or not to be WWE bound? That is the question posing many people today. Hello and welcome to BunkaMania, pro wrestling podcast discussion, where myself, the giraffe of me, Jeremy Graves, and my cohort in crime, who will be on screen for you video viewers in just a moment, the Dekker Dane, Mr. Iain Boulton, we'll be discussing a variety of topics on today's show. We'll be discussing Survivor Series from WWE from this past weekend at the time we are recording this, and of course, the continuing weekly ongoing debate that could arguably at this point just be called Who's Coming or Going from AEW? That next part of the discussion begins imminently. But first of all, I mentioned him, the Dekker Dane, Mr. Iain Boulton, my cohort in crime. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well as well. And to everyone watching and listening to the show as well. We're in Christmas. We're in the road to Christmas now. It's about 20. It's the 2nd of December, so we've got, 22 days left till Christmas? Time's flying, isn't it?
Wonderful.
It's the wonderful time of year where everything just speeds up. And then there's mince pies. Lots of mince pies.
I'll give you honest, I've never really been a mince pie fan. To be fair, I'm not really just like a festive guy anyway. Okay, I'm just going to put this out there now before I become a heel. If you are someone listening to this who is really into like the festive cheer and everything like that, good on you. I'm happy for you. Just leave me in my corner of whimsy and misery at times, is how I'll put it.
I think for me, it's usually, I will feel more Christmassy as we get closer to the date. So starting to hear Christmas songs like the 1st of December, like I did yesterday, it's kind of like, okay, it's a bit early. Let's wait a little bit. I mean, once we get into the week before, the week and a half before, then I will feel a bit more Christmassy. But right now, it's just like, it's still December. It's still some time to go. Let's just get everything in order before the very, very busy holiday season. And I think that's the same with wrestling in a way, because it looks like we've got no more major events going on, apart from probably winter is coming from AEW side until the new year. There's no day one now, so we don't necessarily have a new year, new pay-per-views to stick or premium live event to kick off. So it's it's kind of like everyone's taking their sort of gentle time to get to Santa Claus.
And speaking of taking sweet time, a little bit of some housekeeping programming notes, everyone. First of all, if you're a new listener, I'm Jeremy. Hello, thank you very much for checking out the show. If I sound like I'm not entirely with it today, / my voice sounds horrid, it's because I've been suffering from a sinus infection for the past week, which escalated in many ways during the week. So I'm sort of just about, I would say I'm over the hill on that, but I'm still not perfect. So I've had the medicine and whatnot. I've had the prescription stuff. So if at any point it randomly sounds like I stopped talking, it's probably because I'm coughing my guts up, and I'm trying to make sure you folks don't have to hear that. Just a small programming note. Additionally, if you are joining us on YouTube, thank you very much for checking out the show. Hope you enjoy it. And if you feel so inclined, hit that like and subscribe button. Or if you're checking us out audio-only form, no matter where you have found us, thank you very much for giving us a chance. And of course, you can be sure to find our entire podcast archive on all of those platforms as well. So if you have a lot of spare time in the run-up to the height of the festive season, I'm trying not to say the key word there, you can tell how awkward this is going to be, you can indulge in all of those episodes, including, if you are one of our audio-only listeners, some of the bonus episodes that we've done exclusively for audio content indulgers. That's a weird word. But Iain, sir, I know we're going to talk about at the end of the show some more programming notes, so we won't sort of dwell on that too much now in terms of how we're going to be doing things for the rest of the year. But let's begin the day. Well, in fact, no, I'll let you decide. Here you go. A little mystery box. Here's my attempt to be festive. Do you want to start with WWE or AEW?
Well, because we've already started talking about it in the intro, we might as well just get over to AEW and talk about everything that's happened past Full Gear, pretty much to do with one William Regal.
Yeah, so the big story of the week when it comes to AEW Dynamite and such from this past Wednesday, there were actually, I've got to say, it was a great episode of Dynamite overall. The first hour was freaking great television. The main event, once again, the trios match between the Bucks and the Death Triangle, was mental and great fun. There was about a half an hour, 40-minute period, though, in that second hour, where something just went weird. One of those things involved a segment, well, quite simply, involving MJF and William Regal. Now, to kind of set the scene a little bit, the show actually began with Jon Moxley coming out to kind of do a promo. I think he said something to the effect of, there are 3 things for sure in life: death, taxes, and Jon Moxley. That's a great t-shirt waiting to happen. Someone do it.
Yeah.
And he was basically going, who's going to take me on? There's no one left. And then Hangman Page came out. Some words were exchanged by Jon Moxley, which effectively led to him going, are you sure you want to do this after our last match? Wait a minute, can you even remember our last match? And then we had a bit of a beatdown happen and leaned to a pull-apart brawl. This escalated into another segment backstage where they still had a brawl, and we heard on commentary both men were ejected out of the arena because of that. That plays an important role here, as well as another segment where there was the Jericho Appreciation Society, minus Jericho, and Claudio and Wheeler Yuta with Renee Paquette, sorry. Old habits die hard. For some reason being in Nashville. I don't know why. They weren't in the arena. I can't remember exactly where they were. I think they were in Texas, but for some reason they were live in Nashville, quote unquote. And they did a live segment which clearly had been edited because stuff was happening, including Jake Hager's hat. That seemingly was just the talk of the town in that segment. But this meant now, to set the scene properly, the only member of the Blackpool Combat Club in the arena left at this point was Bryan Danielson, who had had a really fun match against Dax Harwood to open up the show after that initial segment. Keeping all of that in mind, MJF comes out, your world champion. He's addressing the crowd, and something is just off. And William Regal's also out there. He kind of came out just before MJF did. They sort of came back from commercial. He was making his way. But something was just off in this segment. And MJF starts talking about an email that he received from Regal after their one-on-one promo thing that they had, the really freaking good one. And Regal essentially said, I can help you get to the next level of being a villain, but you mustn't use the diamond ring. You must grab the brass ring. Read between the lines. That leads to the finish of All Out, which implies this has been happening brewing for the past few weeks. Sorry, full gear. Give me one of those shows, folks. Thank you, Ian. And MJF is talking for a very long time. And it's getting to the point where I think for the first time ever in an MJF promo, I'm actually just going, can you get to the point and shut up so we can move on? Because this genuinely dragged and the crowd were weird. It was really, really weird. You could almost tell that MJF was trying to get the crowd to react. It was like, all right, what other card in my deck of cards do I have here? I'll play this card. Let's see if that one works. And it just didn't. The climax of the segment was MJF revealing he has a new championship belt, which was the 3B, the big Burberry belt. The only difference is the actual gold plating is now not scuffed up to buggery, and it's all nice and clean and shiny, but the leather has, if you look closely, a Burberry pattern to it. Because Lord knows on my TV, I couldn't see it at first glance. So I just thought, what's different?
It's very faint. It's a very faint pattern, and it's like, I can imagine, I can see the idea behind it, but to me, it's just like, okay, it's just some weird patterns to make it look like the scarf. I get it, but it's weird.
It is. And the climax of this was MJF kind of doing his usual shtick, but then he starts to ask the crowd to give William Regal some appreciation, which everyone's going to do because it's Regal, regardless of what's happened in storyline. Max walks behind him, and when that happened, it's like, what's about to happen here? Because this seems very deliberate in terms of movement. And then he's got the brass knuckles on his hand at this point, kind of acknowledging what had happened. And he clocks Regal right in the back of the head, kind of almost in between neck and shoulder, head and shoulder area, if you will, right on the back of the neck. And Regal just goes down in a heap. And then this leads to Max leaving, a bunch of people coming out, including, well, Max left through the crowd, I should emphasize. And he had also emphasized as well during his promo, chances are, if you want to see me defend this belt, you're going to have to pay for it, because I ain't going to be defending this often. Kind of almost in some ways saying, you know that Roman Reigns fella who you hardly ever see? That's kind of what it said to me. Excluding the Winter is Coming defense over in a couple of weeks' time, it should be noted. This led to doctors coming out, Danielson coming out, of which he only had like one boot on because we had been told he'd been in the trainer's room. So it was very much designed to come across like this is bad. And ultimately, we come back from the adverts, and Regal is on a backboard. He's taken into an ambulance. Danielson goes in an ambulance with him, and he is taken out of the arena. There has been some speculation going around the past couple of weeks with many publications that something might be up when it comes to Regal's status with AEW.
Mm-hmm.
There was talk of this before Survivor Series. There was a very, very, very pronounced tweet by Triple H where on the night of Survivor Series War Games, he effectively did something to the effect of, it's just not the same without, and then it just has a picture of Regal kind of shouting into a microphone.
Mm.
So when you see that, you're like, that's... That, to say that's on the nose is a little bit of an understatement.
Mm.
And this was escalated further post-Dynamite by sort of publications like the Wrestling Observer and Dave Meltzer sort of alluding to the fact of something's up, but wouldn't elaborate anymore, which then the next day led, I think it was, to PW Insider claiming that Regal is WWE bound. And then I think Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful then tweeting, because I think he's currently suffering from COVID, which I've been there, buddy, like flipping out. I don't envy you. But he ended up tweeting something to the effect of Regal's deal is up in December. So there's a lot of seemingly potential moving parts here, but to kind of now allow you to speak for a second, Iain, here, it kind of implies that Regal has been completely written out of storyline here, effectively killed off, and he's going back to WWE.
Yeah. I think if the angle hadn't played out on television, that particular angle, the MJF attack, I'd kind of be more on the, if he's going to WWE, he goes to WWE. If he's staying for AEW, he's staying with AEW, and whatever happens, happens. But the news reports this, it all kind of pinpoints towards, there's some truth to this. There's some possible truth to this. I mean, for all we know, it might not happen. This is the thing. It's like, this is one of the things, is no one necessarily come out to offer a definitive statement. To my knowledge, I know there were sort of like ideas bandied around that the contract was possibly 1 year. So when he started at Revolution, to 3 years or so forth, or there's an opt-out clause in the contract, which may be the reason why this is happening now. It's the fact of the matter is there is quite a lot of speculation, and the wrestling sites that are reporting are obviously trying to make sure they're getting the right information before they go off and report, because obviously at the end of the day they don't go out, they don't try to make a story. Well, let me rephrase this. They will only say a story. Well, they'll only share a story if they feel there's some legit concrete stuff to it.
Especially given the way that this year as a whole, which we may get onto in a future show before the end of the year, the way this year has played out from legitimate news items have played out this year.
Yeah, you
need to be very credible right now when it comes to reporting things.
There is a very good video from Wrestle Talk's Friday podcast. I think it's the Blackpool Content Club. So really, it's a nice little Friday show where they sort of talk about general topics, and they did a really good, I think it's a 90-minute episode talking about the news reports and kind of how the reporting, say, Malachi Black's recent sort of AEW news stories had been going, and kind of understanding where is this sort of, I think, trying to think where is trying to get this right. It's kind of understanding how people are trying to report this story and the things that people need to be aware of when they're trying to obviously share stories and so forth. I think again, it comes down to a lot of, sometimes outlets are telling what they are legitimately telling, but it's through social media, it's through hearsay of the distortion, the sort of alteration, or just kind of rewriting the story to hit your point per se. So for example, it's kind of like you can take any sort of a fact of a film, or it's basically clickbait. It's clickbait material, really. in that sense. You
In
say,
a way,
oh,
what's the word? Editorializing, is that the word? Kind of
yeah,
adding your own
editorializing,
spin to what you've been told.
but then trying to make it sound like, oh, it's legitimate fact. This is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And that's why when we on the show, I feel when we do talk about these sort of news articles, we do obviously we credit back to where we've seen and read this initial. But at the end of the day, it's like we don't have the knowledge. We don't have the knowledge full, and I mean, we probably never will be in a position where we know all that knowledge. But it's been a year where, and this might be something for our end of 2022 shows, but it's been a year where simple stories have kind of mutated into something that was never there to begin with, per se.
And very much, many of those stories have just escalated.
Yeah.
In various ways, be them ultimately. Again, look, I'm not going to spoil all the stuff we're going to talk about, but just think about some of the baseline things from this year. We'll just pick out 3. Sasha and Naomi.
Yeah.
Was a big thing that's still technically, as far as the public is concerned, not resolved.
Mm-hmm.
The Vince McMahon stuff has been resolved to a point, but we don't actually know how it's actually been resolved, if at all, yet.
Mm.
And now look at the All Out stuff that happened, and now this Regal stuff. That's just 4, but there are so many more things that have happened this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the initial WWE contact in AEW starts when Triple H took over, and the sense of obviously contract tampering, and then it escalates to some. You've got the whole Bobby Fish side of things that comes out of that. It's I'm trying not to go too far off what we're talking about, but it's been a year where there have been big stories, and some stories have been resolved. Some stories have clearly we've got a good picture and an understanding through the newspaper, or not newspaper, the wrestling sites reports.
I wish it was newspapers at this point.
Yeah. The Sun. No, not the Sun. No, God,
please,
no,
not the Sun.
No, not the Sun. On the Mail on Sunday. No, that's even worse.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me ask you this then as a question then, to sort of help get back on the topic, but I think this will help lead it further.
Yeah.
At this point, regardless of what his role may or may not be, do you think Regal, based on what we have heard, read, and seen, do you actually think he is going back now? And more to the point, do you think Tony Khan will allow it?
I think yes on both accounts. It's like it all seems very. It seems all very kind of set in stone, or basically the path has been made for it to happen. And I think considering, I think Tony Khan would probably be open to letting him go because Regal is a legend. He earns a lot of respect in the industry. So the last thing you want to do for more of the heavyweights in the industry is to really kind of, not say punish a legend, but kind of hold on to a legend for the sake of, I don't want him to go to WWE. On the other, because if he does go to WWE, if anything, it's going to be probably similar to his role when he was with Triple H in NXT. And there may be a very slight on-screen role. He might, you never know, he might turn up as the manager of something on the main roster for the first time rather than NXT. It's just in terms of a talent benefit or time, like it's not gonna suddenly change viewership numbers. It's not like for say if a CM Punk was to somehow through hell or high water make a WWE team. If it's like the Elite going over to WWE, I think that will have a different impact if that's the case. We kind of saw it when Cody kind of moved back over to WWE. There was a certain impact, a sort of a new sort of look of how they were treating stars like Cody at that time. I don't necessarily see that being the same case for William Regal. It's more of a coaching backstage sort of environment. So it's hard to. I can't imagine how. And it's not trying to be kind of looking at it bad in negative light, but it's like Regal will probably be there to offer advice and coaching, but it's not going to necessarily change the product again. I mean, a lot of changes already happened with WWE, and people seem to be quite happy with the product. So it's not like it needs to be completely refined again or something. I'm talking too much on it, really.
Well, to add my 2 cents, I do agree with everything you said. I think there is definitely cause for Regal to go back. Because clearly at the time everything happened, things just weren't in a good place in WWE. A lot has changed, like you said. And with Triple H now running the ship and him and Regal clearly having a very good relationship, regardless of what happened ultimately, you can tell there is probably that thing of, if he could go back to WWE, he would. But at the same time, if he couldn't, I don't think he'd be upset about it. Because everything he's done with AEW, like even just when he's been on commentary, it's added a whole new dynamic to how you watch a match, and him adding little elements of characterization to things that maybe the other announcers wouldn't have considered. He's added a very unique flavor to the television program, to AEW's television programming. I do think Regal's role as a whole in AEW has never fully been realized. When you think about it, the Blackpool Combat Club, the freaking Blackpool Combat Club is named basically after him. What's going to happen now? We may get onto that soon. But there's the whole thing of the Blackpool Combat Club was formed the way it was formed, with the whole Danielson and Moxley thing and him just coming in and being the mediator of slapping them both in the face. It was such a fun way to bring him in, and then bringing in Wheeler Yuta and elevating him. You've got the Claudio element as well, which admittedly was kind of because Danielson was injured in that moment there and then. But it was still just a really cool thing that everyone was behind. And arguably the peak of the Blackpool Combat Club was the stuff involving Anarchy in the Arena and Blood and Guts. Because since then, nothing much has happened. No. And it's a shame, because it kind of feels like I've kind of been thinking about this when it comes to AEW as a whole, but while I still enjoy watching the show, I enjoy taking it all in, I love getting invested in it, there are a number of things where you just kind of think, what's happened there? Like, why has that suddenly gone to the wayside? I mean, look, case in point, randomly on Dynamite, there was a Technique by Taz video package, which was really fun to see again, because we haven't seen him in a while, but it was about Hook defeating Lee Moriarty, and I suddenly thought, why has this come out of nowhere? And where the hell's Hook? It's another one of those things. So that might be another thing to discuss in the end of 2022 thing that we're going to try and do at some point. But I do think that Regal's role as a whole in AEW has never been fully realized. There have been wonderful gems of moments, unbelievable moments involving Regal, and what he has brought to the product has been fantastic. But at this point, if he were to go back to WWE, I don't think it's a major unbalancing of things. The biggest thing is just what the hell's happening with the Blackpool Combat Club, but that's just, like I said, been a question for a while.
Yeah. It's weird with the Blackpool Combat Club, because when they came together, started coming together, it was like this was a hot faction. Now it's not. Now it's again, everyone's kind of gone off on their own sort of different sort of directions. We've had we have Bryan Danielson with Daniel Garcia, for example, for the last couple of months. We've had Yuta having his own little feud with MGF, Claudio with Jericho and stuff like that. They've all kind of gone off on their own directions and not really kind of had to deal with something as a unit since, say, Blood and Guts, to be honest.
And admittedly, to just quickly add a point before I let you continue, you can very easily argue, which I would agree with in many ways, that all the stuff post All Out did not help, because that probably derailed a lot of plans they had, which then meant a few of the Blackpool Combat Club members suddenly had to be in a title tournament. Yeah. So that factored in, it still doesn't change the point, but please continue.
No, I've kind of got to the end of my point there, really. It's just basically, it was generally, they were really, Blackpool Combat Club, really solid, promising faction, and now it's just kind of like, well, they're all on their own little stories at the moment. Doesn't really feel like they're tackling something together as a faction.
Good point. And I think to sort of round off this Blackpool Combat Club talk, if you will, on the Regal subject, just to kind of analyze where we are at with the characters, with each member of the Blackpool Combat Club. If you include Regal in this as well, just for argument's sake, Regal, for all intent and purpose, has been killed. I don't laugh about that lightly. I'm just saying in the context of it. Danielson, we've seen on television, he clearly treats Regal like a father figure. So one assumes long term, he will be going after MJF and will probably be one of MJF's big first feuds. I can very much see that being the feud for Revolution, if not maybe very early in the new year time.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that happening.
Yeah.
John Moxley and Adam Page is obviously a direction here.
Yep.
Wheeler Yuta's a weird one because he was about and then just wasn't for like a month, and now he's back again. But he was having issues with other members of the Blackpool Combat Club, which is now, going back to that segment that I mentioned on Dynamite where him and Claudio were with the JAS, he is now challenging Daniel Garcia for kind of a let's finish this between us match for the pure title at Final Battle, which is next weekend, the 10th of December. And you would barely know it based on this television show because boy, did they do nothing to really promote it. From Claudio's point of view, and this was set up on Dynamite last week at the time we're recording this, he will be challenging Jericho for the ROH title. But the interesting element of this, which I actually think works really well, the stipulation of the match is if Claudio doesn't, I'm going to assume it doesn't win the title rather than doesn't win the match, he has to join the JAS and become a sports entertainer once again. Which I can see that actually being pretty good fun because him and Hager have got history. You can tell all like the little badgering that he'll have with all the like the other cronies in that group as well. I think that could actually be a fun storyline. You could argue, is that not just the whole MJF Wardlow thing again?
Yeah.
But then it's like, yeah, except it's got Jericho involved and Claudio and Jake Hager in his hat. So it's going to be good. And that's where we're at currently with the Blackpool Combat Club on that front.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just pick one or two other quick elements from Dynamite, as it were, because I appreciate we're going to try and keep it somewhat streamlined. Other things that are going to be happening on AEW over the coming weeks. We've got the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal returning, which is for the Diamond Ring that MJF just owns at this point. There is literally a graphic doing the rounds that AEW have put out where they've got like, you know, like how in like American sports, they have like the hanging down banners to honor like past teams who have won a championship or past, you know, players from their history for like a basketball team. It just says 2019, 20, and 21. Each of them just say MJF on it in the background. It's really funny. So the Dynamite Diamond Battle Royal, I don't think this has been a stipulation before, but I might have to be corrected on this. Apparently, the winner of that, or effectively whoever will own the diamond ring, because there's sort of two different rulings I've heard here. Okay. Effectively, whoever comes up with the diamond ring ultimately can have a championship match anytime they want. But the way I heard that was effective. The way I interpreted the way it was said was like a Money in the Bank style cash-in. But I don't think it's that, because I think it's going to be the winner of the Battle Royal will face the previous winner, who is MJF. And they've set it up whereby Ethan Page has said he's going to win and get the first title shot after Starks. Ricky Starks said, MJF, I'm coming for everything that's yours. I'm going to start off with the diamond ring, then I'm going to get your belt. Which I think that's a nice little way to hook that in.
Yeah. And I can see if we're going to build Starks up as a credible challenger, I can see Starks taking the ring. Because then as much as MJF is amazing, it's just like, again, it's like you don't want to kind of just throw everything onto MJF again. Or not again. I mean, I'm kind of looking at how we're doing it with the Bloodline at the moment. Well, the Bloodline is great. It's like putting all the big belts on them is kind of like, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because like, okay, well, what's everyone else going to do in the meanwhile while you've got 4 sets of belts all around you?
Well, do you know what? It's funny you mentioned that because you could argue this is actually now, ironically, despite everything we and a lot of other people have been saying for months, perhaps an advantage for AEW to have too many damn championships. Because if your world champion's not going to be around that much, you can elevate the other belts. Like the trios titles at the moment are just such a hot commodity because of these 3 matches that they've had so far. The Bucks and Death Triangle, the All-Atlantic title. Oh, Orange Cassidy set up another match for the title, whereby QT Marshall had a backstage segment with him. And he's like, I keep getting interrupted. And Orange, I want to challenge you for the... Yeah, sure. Just gets cut off by him. And he's like, oh, all right. Well, I want to have it this Friday on Rampage. Yeah, go on. Sure. Rampage. Sure.
Why not? Just why?
And he's like, but I want to have it as a lumberjack match. And Cassidy cuts and goes, lumberjack match? Sure, fine, whatever. See you Friday. And then QT Marshall's like, great, but I still got cut off. What the hell?
It's like you got what you wanted, QT. Just stop it. Just stop it now.
Exactly. So elsewhere, I obviously mentioned the big Burberry belt thing. Ruby Soho returned because the show was in Indianapolis, so it's kind of her home state, if you will. So she's back on television now.
Mm-hmm.
And Willow had a really impressive showing. It was quite an interesting dynamic when it came to Willow, because we'd had the whole William Regal stuff happen, and it was kind of very like they designed it so you would feel very down and sad about it. And then you've got Willow coming out being all bubbly and smiling. It's like, Willow, your job is to get everyone happy again. And she did a great job.
It's like, don't be sad. William Regal's probably dead to AEW, but let's have a fun match.
So they built that up. There was a weird segment involving Jade Cargill, though. Weird.
Yeah, so, the little Bow Wow thing. Yeah.
Essentially, her and Bow Wow, who I'm not familiar with as a rapper, just in general, I'm a metalhead. Full disclosure, people. They're having an interaction of some kind. Bow Wow's now not touring, so as he said in a clearly taped backstage during the warm-up act of his gig video, just clearly he just said, "I've got some free time. Maybe I'll see you soon." It's like, okay, well, something's going to happen there. So. And they're also teasing that the baddies might be splitting up. Because last week, I've totally forgotten her name.
Someone got fired last week, didn't they?
It wasn't Tasha Steele, because she's an Impact, but it's always her tag team partner from Impact, who I can't remember.
Was it Ruby? Or
the name's
Red
completely
Velvet.
gone.
Is it Red Velvet?
No. So Red Velvet's still there. Layla Gray, the one that was brought in to replace Red Velvet while she was injured, is still there. But the other one with blue hair, who is really, really cool, whose name I can't remember and it's really annoying me. Apparently, they were her and the two baddies were still hanging out this past weekend. We have no context, wasn't explained. And Jade wasn't happy about that. And she's kind of saying, you two better like shape up or whatnot. And Red Velvet just literally had that look of, I don't care about you. I'm just going to turn on you in a minute. It's like, what's going on? So I am fully expecting we're going to see Jade Cargill and Red Velvet continuing the feud that began during the Jacksonville pandemic era, when it was Cody and ultimately Red Velvet against Jade and Shaq.
This feud must go on forever.
I remember that at this point.
It'll be a feud that will just keep going on for I don't know. I don't know.
But like I say, to sort of round off the AEW talk now, in terms of this episode of Dynamite, really, really fun show. Like I said, the first hour was really strong. Then the MJF stuff, from there, that was a weird it was legitimately like 20 minutes long, that segment. That was weird. And then trying to get the crowd back into it during the women's match, there was obviously that weird emotion going about. But then the trios match at the end, freaking mental. Just great stuff once again. Of which I should actually note, to close off my AEW thoughts, the trios tournament, as it were, now the best of 7, is now 2-1 to Death Triangle because the Elite got the win.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a match. Yes, next match will be match 4, but that match isn't until the Winter is Coming episode, because the next match is not on this week's Dynamite.
Okay.
So if you want a better word, if you don't want to see that trios match, why, first of all, but you will not have to watch it on Dynamite. So yeah, AEW in a unique spot at the moment. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Fair enough.
So let's get on to arguably, well, I mean, is it arguably as big? I don't know at this point, because so much has happened since it happened. But WWE's Survivor Series premium live event that took place.
Correct title, please. It's on the screen. WWE Survivor Series War Games. There we go. Carry on.
Wouldn't you love it if they've only hired Regal back just to record a bunch of voiceovers of him saying War Games?
I mean, you know shit's about to go down when Regal turns up. Just looks at two squabbling teams of wrestlers and just goes, War Games. It's the one I like the most is, I think it's the one where it's Undisputed, the Undisputed Era versus Pat McAfee's group. And it's like they're coming down, and Regal has appeared. He's looking around. You've got Adam Cole just going, just say it, William. Say it. Please say it. I need to hear you say those words. Well, he just goes, War Games.
Just egging on the crowd, effectively.
Yeah.
So, overall thoughts on the show to begin with. I've done a lot of talking, so your just kind of overall sort of general brief thoughts on the show as a whole.
It's a good solid show. There was some decent wrestling. I think the War Games matches were fairly all right. They weren't as spectacular as, say, I think some of the ones we have seen in NXT over the last couple of years. A decent sort of mid card sort of assortment. AJ Styles versus Finn Balor was good. The triple threat for the United States title was good. Bit of a misstep with the SmackDown Women's Championship. But I think if any and all this show is going to be remembered for is simply the ongoing story of the Bloodline and the next layer of it all, or the end of one chapter and potentially the beginning of the next. Because obviously here we had a storyline going out throughout the show, coming off of SmackDown the night before, of Kevin Owens talking to Sami Zayn and sort of going, "Hey, you should turn on the Bloodline before they turn on you." And Sami didn't tell Jay about it, despite that Jay had listened into that entire conversation. So Jay tells Roman about it. Roman has a sit down with Sami to look him in the eyes to see if he's the character that he knows he's going to be. And during the War Games match, you've got this sort of uneasy thing of something serious is going to happen. I think for most of the show until like the final match or during the match is like, part of me sensing something bad's going to happen to Sami at the end of this, or even Jay at this point in time. But the big crux of the War Games match, the men's one, is Kevin Owens virtually has the match won. He's delivered pop-up powerbomb and stunner to Roman Reigns. He's got him for free. 1, 2, and Sami literally stops the ref from counting the third one to say,
such a good moment,
just to go, nope, you're not winning this. And after another bit of bickering, it's like the vicious low blow to like sour a friendship, then the haluva kick, and Jey Uso gets the pin. And it's like the post-match moments of Roman's embrace of Sami, and then even Sami and Jey finally burying the hatchet per se it's like, it's a strange feel-good moment for heels. That's weird to say in a way. It's like, yes, this is amazing, but why are we cheering this? I don't know, but I feel good about this. Yay! And that's the main crux of Survivor Series, really. It's just we have finished one part of the Sami Zayn Bloodline story. I think we're starting the next, and the question is, how long is it going to last until it all goes wrong? Or basically, I think the best way, I think some people said it on social media, is like having Sami and Jey embrace was an emotionally beautiful thing to see in the wrestling ring. The breakup of Sami from the Bloodline is going to be devastating.
Yeah. It's going to be mental. Yeah, to me, and this might sound incredibly harsh, this is a one-match show.
Yeah.
Overall, this Survivor Series was fine. A lot of it didn't light my world on fire. Yeah. I personally thought both War Games matches, although I appreciate technically they were only like officially 10 minutes each when you factor in the technically the first 20-minute preamble and stuff. I thought they were just both all right. When it came to the whole stuff, the Sami Zayn stuff was the most interesting dynamic, but the whole dynamic of that in the context of this is still very weird, just as a whole. The women's War Games match, I didn't understand the purpose of it. And do you know what? This might just be me being a very kind of older school mentality wrestling fan. I actually missed just a normal Survivor Series match. I get the whole focus was War Games, but there was a part of me that thought, did there have to be 2 War Games matches? Because the thing about them was they both just felt endless. And I get that's kind of part of the idea of the concept of the match, where you've got people duking it out for like, nearly 15, 20 minutes before it actually begins. But I actually just really wanted to see something more like a normal match. I think this actually would have benefited more if what was the women's War Game match, if that had just been a straight up Survivor Series traditional style match. And some people could argue, well, why should the men get a War Games match and the women don't? I don't mean it in that way. I just mean it purely from the perspective of, I think the women's match would have been better being a traditional Survivor Series match, because there was just something about it where there wasn't just much of a through line. The most through line there was Damage Control v Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. That was the most through line there was. Otherwise, the other women there, to the best of my knowledge, based on the limited amount of WWE I watch, were just there. And that's no slight on them. That's just how it came across to me personally. But like I say, that's my thoughts on that. But can't take away from what they were doing, because some of the stuff they're doing is freaking mental. And doing it inside a double ring cage like that, it's not easy. So full credit to them. But that's just how it came across to me.
That's fair. In terms of, I guess the reason why we have War Games matches in this one and no Survivor Series, I think it's a bit of a fresh up, because I think for the last, I don't know how many years it's been now, it's just like the whole brand supremacy thing has just been really, really done to death. And I think the whole thing's that the brand supremacy thing, you have the Survivor Series matches kind of tied into that. And I think maybe for this one, just for this one with Triple H taking over the first time, maybe it's just like, let's just clear the palette of Survivor Series for a little bit, see how, try and get our bearings, and then carry on. Because I think we talked about this previously, but some of the gimmick shows per se moving forward are not going to happen. So we're not going to have another Hell in a Cell premium live event. Hell in a Cell is still going to exist as a match concept, but at least you're able to sort of use it as like a feud ender
when it's actually needed, as opposed to it's needing to be used. Yeah,
because Triple H in the post event press conference made a good point. It's basically like Hell in a Cell is something that you can put to finish a feud. And basically if someone goes, I challenge you to a match, and it's going to be Hell in a Cell. For things like Elimination Chamber and Money in the Bank, you can't say, I challenge you and 500 people to face me in a chamber, or you and 600 people to fight me for a ladder, and stuff like that. So those sort of concepts, they may continue to still have. Well, Elimination Chamber is definitely still continuing next year as a premium live event. Money in the Bank is still yet to be fully confirmed. So you can understand why those match sort of types happen. And yeah, whereas Hell in a Cell becomes its own simple thing. Maybe War Games becomes that moving forward. Maybe War Games becomes when two factions just really can't stop fighting one another. Maybe War Games becomes that feud ender. So okay, you two teams can't stop fighting. Let's have a War Games match and end this. That could work. But I think maybe the reason why we just have War Games and no Survivor Series style matches is simply because the reset last year's event was god awful. Even with their Survivor Series style matches in there as well. So
I know we went over it on the last show. I genuinely don't remember what happened at 21 now. I might have to look it up again, just for comparison's sake.
We went over this last time, but you looked at the fight card, Jeremy. You looked at the fight card.
I legitimately don't remember. That's how much of an impact it didn't have on me.
Oh, what was... Yeah, because it was...
Oh, yeah, the main event was Big E v Roman.
Yeah.
And there was a Team Raw v Team SmackDown Survivor Series, RK Bro v the Usos for the tag titles.
Nakamura Rollins for US versus Intercontinental.
Oh, yeah, the whole Rock 20th Anniversary Battle Royal thing. I remember talking about that. Anyway, I won't labour the point, but there you go. Yeah. So, yes, the event last year was not good.
Yeah. So, you could probably be understanding why WWE did what they've done with this year's event. Maybe next year it might just be traditional Survivor Series games. Maybe there might be a War Games match still there. Who knows? But at least it's kind of like we've done something different, we've done something new. Let's move on.
There is a theory going around online that the reason that there were 2 War Games matches on this show was purely so when it came to next year, they have lots of material to make a hype package with from stuff from the main roster, as opposed to just NXT footage.
Which is fair, because a good number of talent involved in the NXT ones are not with... I mean, Undisputed Era featured in practically all of them, and only one of their faction is still theoretically still part of WWE, when that's Roderick Strong. I mean, maybe if, and this is a side thing, obviously, if Eric Young, who was stabbed and killed off Impact this week,
literally in a prison, this happened, folks.
Yes. If that's anything to go by, then maybe we can go back and have a look at some of the sanity footage. But yeah.
Yeah, so the way I look at it, and to go back to what you were saying as well about how like Hell in a Cell is a feud ender, I think War Games needs to have that same precedence, which is partly why I think just having the one. I mean, again, in the context of these two War Games matches, from my perspective and what they showed from like hype packages, Bloodline v the Brawling Brutes and Folks makes far more sense as a War Games match than the two women's matches than the women's match it did, I should say. But that's just personal opinion. In terms of other stuff on the show, AJ and Finn Balor,
good match. Really, I've a nice technical match as well. I think they're now one apiece in their series. I mean, the last time they actually went 1-on-1 was TLC 2015. I believe, or 26. No, 2016.
I think we mentioned it. It was when AJ had to do the emergency cover because something happened. Was it when Roman was out injured and Kurt Angle ended up in the Shield for a night?
It was going to be Demon Finn Balor versus Sister Abigail, but basically Bray Wyatt dressed up as Sister Abigail. And Bray Wyatt, I think, went down with the same thing as Roman. So they both kind of suffered the same thing. So AJ got called in to have a match, which Finn won. So
he got called in from Chile, I think it was.
Yeah. So yeah, they're one apiece. It was, and the fact is, they eliminated both the OC and Judgment Day from the rings by just having them brawl into the crowds. And yeah, there was no hokey kokum finish. It's like phenomenal forearm pin. There you go.
Can we please keep the phrase hokey kokum finish now as one of our forever phrases? I love it.
Stupid bollocks, hokey kokum.
This is our bingo card now.
I think I was trying to say hokey cokey. It's like, why would I want to say hokey cokey? You put your AJ in, your AJ out, in, out, in, out, off the top rope goes. He does for normal format and he gets the pin. That's what it's all about.
And just to be a real buzzkill, I thought this match was boring.
Fair.
Which is annoying because I really like both wrestlers, but there was just something about it where it just didn't click for me.
The triple threat US title, I think, was probably the funnest mid card in between the two War Games matches. Probably the funnest one a lot, simply because everyone's going like 150 miles per hour, which is it's like step on Theory to do a stomp on Lashley from Rollins.
There was a lot of good dynamics in that match. It was just good fun. Also, Rollins being now Rollins officially being a babyface, it just works. That's just the only way to put it. It's like of everything, it just works. I did like the fact now he's got like some blonde hair again, some bleached blonde hair. It's like, oh, you're doing that thing again, are you? Is that how we truly know you're a babyface again?
He's gone back to traditional Seth Rollins bleached hair from the Shield days. But no, I liked the finish of him getting speared mid Falcon Arrow to let Austin Theory just fall on him, and Austin Theory wins the belt. It's kind of similar to like how Joe just went, I'm going to win this belt. I've won the belt. I've won the TNT. Bye. It's like, because it's generally funny because I think the crowd were. You look at the crowd reactions at the end of the US triple threat match. There's like people are surprised in a kind of weird, happy. It's like, what's just going on?
I think it was probably more that thing of, wait, what? Austin Theory? What?
But the fact is, like, when I watched it, it's like I just laughed because I found it really funny. It's like I didn't mind if Rollins kept or lost the belt, and if Theory or Lashley did, because I think it's a nice little feud thing going on at the moment. But it was just the sort of, oh no, he's been speared. Oh no, Theory's won. Really? All right, this is funny.
It did make me think, okay, and this is just like the fantasy booking type thing now. From that perspective, you can kind of understand that they've been trying to rehabilitate Austin Theory since his failed cash-in and whatnot and all that stuff you mentioned before.
Yeah.
In terms of the world title picture, whatever the heck it's called at this point, the unified title, does this mean that Rollins is going to challenge at the Rumble? Because there's an obvious element where I think it's... Where is it? I think it's Elimination Chamber that's taking place in Montreal, which is the hometown / city of both Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
So there has been a report out. I think it's either PW Insider or WrestleVotes who've been able to get this. But basically, the next three big events, or the next big three, defenses have been kind of locked in for Roman. At the moment, it's currently looking like Roman Owens at the Rumble. Then at Elimination Chamber, it will be Zayn Reigns at Elimination Chamber. Which, if you're gonna take the belts off Roman, so he's free to fight The Rock or something like that.
WrestleMania is a 2-night event. Just saying.
Yeah, or Cody, whoever ends up winning the Rumble, it's probably gonna.
The
be
Rumble
Cody.
this year is the Rumble. Just to fast forward, I'm already super excited for the Rumble because this feels the most This isn't a word, but the most anticipatory Rumble we've had in quite a while.
Well, it's all. I mean, I think it's already almost sold out in St. Louis. Oh no, not St. Louis. Alamo Dome. Sorry.
So Texas,
yeah.
Alamo Dome, the site of Royal Rumble 1997.
And 2017, the one that I think Orton won for the second time. When we were all
next, I don't remember, but
when we were all in despair that Roman Reigns was going to win it again, and then everyone rejoiced that Randy Orton won, and then everyone went, "Oh, okay." So I think it's where the groundwork for Reigns versus Taker and the final bit of Goldberg versus Lesnar was settled,
right?
Because that's where Cena
Randy
won
Orton
16th.
won by eliminating Roman Reigns last. Okay, fun anecdote. I'm just going to derail this again because I can. Can you, off the top of your head, recall any other matches from the 2017 Rumble event at the Alamo Dome?
We had Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship.
Correct.
Which Owens won. I think Jericho was in a shark cage in that match.
How do you remember this? But yes.
But ultimately won off an interference from Braun Strowman. Cena won his record time 16th title from AJ Styles.
Correct.
We had the Men's Rumble, which Randy Orton won. Women's Rumble wasn't until 2018. I'm gonna guess the Bar and possibly the New Day battled for a set of tag team titles.
It wasn't the New Day.
Okay, so it was the Bar.
It was
FTR?
a pre-show match.
FTR?
No, it was this is a weird callback in and of itself. It was Gallows and Anderson.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Also on the on the main show, Neville defeated Rich Swann for the Cruiserweight title.
Memories.
And Charlotte Flair, defeated Bayley for the Raw Women's title.
Yeah.
Was there also on the pre-show? Sorry,
was there SmackDown Women's? Because there must have been like Sasha versus someone.
Sasha lost to Nia Jax on the pre-show.
Oh, okay.
In just a one-on-one match, and then there was a 6-woman tag as well on the pre-show as well.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But anyway, I digress. But the Rumble, genuinely, I'm really excited for because very likely Cody's coming back. You've got the whole bloodline dynamic. Roman v Kevin Owens makes sense, even though we have ironically seen it at the 2021 Royal Rumble.
Yes, but I think the good thing about when it's Roman and Owens is the matches are different all the time. That's
as long as we're not going to get a last man standing match where Roman is handcuffed to a truss that Paul Heyman can't undo the handcuffs.
Why not put him in Hell in a Cell? Why not? Let's have a bit of fun.
Do you know how big the Alamo Dome is and how high that cell will have to get?
Well, we'll get a bigger cage then, Jeremy. Get a bigger cage.
A bigger cage.
It's the extra large Hell in a Cell. It's the premium live event Hell in a Cell cage.
Have you ever seen the triple cage from WCW? The infamous triple cage.
Yeah, the big cage, middle cage, small cage. Is that sort of box? Do they use that for like Ready to Rumble?
They used it in the Ready to Rumble. Yeah. We should totally just do a watch log of Ready to Rumble at some point. That's a debate.
We'll just do a comment. We'll just do a commentary track or something. That'll be fun.
But yeah, they used it in Ready to Rumble. It was used at Slamboree 2000 to help promote the film after it had come out. WCW.
Why not?
It was also used at Uncensored 95 or 96, but it was situated in the entranceway.
All right.
It looks dumb. Just look it up. It's really stupid.
That's hokey cook.
So the reason that we've got on talking about this, everyone, is not just because we're reminiscing of old good and bad times. It's because, quite frankly, I don't want to talk about Ronda Rousey and Shotzi because this match was pointless and useless.
It was not good. It was not good. That's all I'll say. It's basically the result. I was never surprised at. It's just, I don't know. It's just. I mean, so Shotzi's a good wrestler as well. Again, it's like it's very hard to partner up good wrestlers. I think with Ronda, unless it's Charlotte Flair or because my guess is as we get to Mania, it's going to be Becky Ronda. That's my gut instinct at the moment. That's where we're going. And then it might be Belair v Rhea or Charlotte possibly for Raw, SmackDown for the Raw Championship. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like I don't recall. I think the only wrestler on the WWE roster who's had decent matches with Ronda has been Charlotte Flair. I mean, I know she's definitely faced Sasha at a Rumble. I think in her first run. Don't necessarily recall that being memorable.
You actually just, sorry to cut off, but you just mentioned her name there, Sasha. Part of the problem with the dynamic of this match was, one, the crowd wanted to see Sasha. They weren't going to get her.
Yeah.
But the other one is, and this is nothing against Shotzi, it's against WWE's ability to make her seem like a credible challenger, but no one believed Shotzi was going to win.
Well,
and there are some instances and moments, we've seen it very recently at wrestling pay-per-views as a whole, where you can convince a crowd just from a couple of split moments that maybe they're about to see something special happen. Maybe. But the problem now is no one believed Shotzi was going to win that at all.
Well,
and it doesn't help that in the sense that, you know, Becky's back, in the sense of everyone's waiting for this long, highly anticipated match between Becky and Ronda Rousey, which one would assume at this point is going to be one of the matches at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many elements where you just don't see anything else happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing was with Shotzi, they made her a number one contender 2 weeks before the pay-per-view or the premium live event. Mm-hmm. It's like, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, you need at least a decent month build, maybe. But the build has not been great for that match. So yeah, the audience is not really going to buy it. And that's not the performance fault. I don't feel it's the performance fault. It's basically I think the writing and maybe creative have just not thought about legit. I mean, a good feud until Becky would have been Ronda versus Shayna, because I think there's something there. The rest of the matches may be good, they might not be so great, but at least the characters and the friendship that they've had over the years in and out of the ring kind of sells itself really as a storyline.
I fully expect we'll see that match soon at some point.
At some point. It might still be the precursor to WrestleMania. Who knows? But yeah, I don't say that there are, because I mean, you got Raquel Rodriguez. I mean,
who's out injured either in storyline or actually
storyline. I think storyline mode. I think she's actually injured. Tally's had several times with Ronda now. That's far enough. Liv is currently under or going into crazy mode, possibly, or basically she's been extreme, quite a lot extreme. I mean,
is she going to become like a random demon at WrestleMania, like Alexa did for one time?
I don't know. Lacey Evans is kind of waiting to do something. I think Xia Li's waiting to do something. Again, it's like, I guess it's like, it goes back to my point. I think it's finding the right wrestlers to work with Ronda. And I think in some degrees, again, it's not a knock against the current roster, but it's like, it's probably someone doesn't have the right matching style to go with Ronda at the moment, if that makes sense.
I think what would have actually benefited, and again, this is nothing against Shotzi, because you mentioned it's kind of a writing element. It is, because it doesn't take much to build up someone. Just have them get some relatively notable wins in the build up to a number one contenders match. Yeah. They become number one contender, and you're like, oh, they've put on a good role recently. You know, there's a chance here. There's a logical through line here, regardless of if you're someone like me who really only watches the PLEs at this point, the premium live events. But I think one of the things you could do with Ronda is just have her matches be damn short, because she's that damn tough.
Yeah.
kind of make it not in a sense like a squash match, but make it where like Ronda is a legit MMA fighter. Make it so that she effectively does some MMA stuff and just I was going to say crumples people, but that doesn't make any sense. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But has effectively that impact to where it's like, man, can anyone last in the ring with her for more than like, a couple of minutes? There's a way to do this to make Ronda matches kind of make you think going in, this is going to be short. Like, what's going to happen? That's how I would do it personally, but what do I know? Then this brings us on to, if I'm correct, the main event, which was the men's Survivor Series match. The men's War Games match at Survivor Series War Games. Oh my word. It was the Bloodline versus the team of the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Holland, and Butch, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. You covered the crux of this match earlier when it came to the big key selling points and the big moments. Like I said, a lot of this just dragged for me, but what I did like, and this added a unique element, especially given the backstage segments earlier involving Roman and Sami, which were freaking tremendous television. It was so good. I loved it when I think it was the second person was going to come in from the Bloodline.
Yeah.
And I think it was Jimmy Uso was proper revved up and ready to go. And then Roman just, as he's sitting in his chair in the cage, how did he get the chair? Just saying. But then he just stops him and just points at Sami and just says, go help Jay. Prove yourself, in essence. And then we get to see this dynamic where Jay does not trust him for anything. And you get a little bit of miscommunication. Yeah, literally. And you get the great interactions, and then just throughout the match, Sami keeps doing little things. Like, I think Jay was going to get his head crushed in between the cage and a kick on a super kick or something. And he just pulled him out the way, did Sami. And it's that little thing of, this is so good. It's so simple. And then ultimately building to that ending. And then when there was that embrace at the end, it was like someone had just won the world title for the first time. It was that level of reaction. And it was fantastic television. You still got this thing of, like you said, when this thing crumbles, it's going to be heartbreaking. But it's going to be magnificent television.
The question is, how heartbreaking is it going to be? Is it going to be Festival of Friendship levels of heartbreaking? Because that takes some topping. It really does.
I think this will top it only because you could always see the dynamic between Jericho and Owens. Like, it worked from the outset. But the idea of the Bloodline and Sami Zayn seemed so ludicrous. Why would it work? And because everyone's bought into it now, and they're so invested in it, there's going to be that thing of everyone's waiting for it to happen. No one wants it to happen, but everyone does want it to happen. And it's just going to be, when are they just going to hit that switch? And one assumes it'll probably be between Rumble and Elimination Chamber at some point.
What if, and this is another wild theory, what if Sami wins the Rumble?
That's what I was going to say, literally.
Just saying.
And instead he decides to cash it in his hometown rather than WrestleMania, which you can actually understand that from a point of view of...
Or we're going to take a page out of No Way Out 2004.
Oh, God, wait. What year was that? That was WrestleMania 21 year.
No, that was WrestleMania 20, wasn't it?
No, WrestleMania 21 was... Oh, sorry, yeah, that was March 2005, WrestleMania 21. Sorry, yeah, so correct.
So basically, you have Sami versus Roman at Elimination Chamber. Roman looks incredibly likely to retain. And then just at the last moment, you've got... Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? Rock runs in, Rock bottoms him, throws Sami on it. 1, 2, 3. We've done like a Goldberg spearing Lesnar, so Guerrero wins. It's like, again, you kind of, but then again, this, like, that would be fun. But I think, again, whoever does eventually pin Roman for those belts, they need to do it kind of by themselves or do the final finish themselves, per se.
To me, when it comes to however or whoever Roman is ultimately dethroned by, it has to be definitive.
Mm.
Anything less than a definitive win, I think does an entire disservice to this entire build-up and story. I think this is at a level where someone cheats to dethrone Roman, even though Roman's cheated multiple times.
Yeah.
I think it would just be that thing of all that build-up, and ultimately he cheated. It just kind of has that little bit of a taste in your mouth. To me, anyway.
Yeah.
So
there's so many ways you can do that match, but it's like part of me still feels Sami's the logical person to take the belts off Roman.
At this point, given that Cody has been out, even though that Cody thing is already established, and one would assume he's going to end up facing Rollins in his first match back, which at that point will make him 4-0 against Rollins. But now that Rollins is a babyface, how does that work? Who knows? At this point, Sami Zayn seems the most logical choice to dethrone Roman, which if you'd have asked anybody that under a year ago, think about this. At WrestleMania this year, Sami Zayn was in the Jackass match.
Yeah.
And you think about the rise since then, it's freaking brilliant. It just goes to show what can happen. But so post Survivor Series, I'll let you kind of lead the charge on this. Any big notes to be aware of when it comes to what occurred post Survivor Series?
At the moment, post Survivor Series, Kevin Owens has definitely said to Sami, "I no longer want to be your friend. I don't want to be traveling with you. I don't want to eat with you. I don't want to see you." In that sort of thing. And there's a visible image of Sami's heart just breaking as KO says all that. But KO goes, "Hey, I understand why you would do it because he's done it many a times. I mean, it's like when Sami Zayn won the NXT Championship. KO completely destroyed him straight after the celebrations. So
it's just like friends? Question mark.
It's like I've done it before, I know, but I still don't want to be friends anymore. It's like,
you crossed the line, but you crossed the line that I've crossed, but I wouldn't cross because you crossed it.
Yeah, it's like I'm the one who's supposed to cross the line. You're not the one who's supposed to cross the line. KO beat Jay on Raw's main event this week, so I think we're clearly definitely building towards that Royal Rumble match with Owens and Reigns. In terms of other things going on,
any women's title developments at all?
Not necessarily. Well, Becky's going into a feud with Bayley. They fought in the concession stand.
Fun.
Yeah. No sort of definitive challenges for Bianca's title at the moment, but I would sense it would be Rhea at some point. I think they almost gave Rhea a win over Mia Yim, but I think did Judgment Day beat OC? I think they had a big complete group on group fight on Raw, and I think Judgment Day won that one. So again, I think they're trying to definitively say that's it for the feud now. So moving that on, Dexter Lumis is now a WWE contracted superstar. He beat The Miz after so many months.
I'm so glad I didn't have to see that at Survivor Series. I just don't want to see The Miz.
So there's that. Austin Theory is continuing his feud with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is going in by calling him Kid a lot, which he doesn't like. Yeah. That's all I can really think. Oh, Candice LeRae's back as well. Candice LeRae came back, beat Dakota Kai. And there's an adorable backstage interview with her and little baby Quill.
There you go. I will note for folks that at the time we're recording this, SmackDown has not aired, which is why we've not referenced anything that's occurred on SmackDown.
Tonight should be the World Cup on Fox final, the WWE World Cup, and I believe the final is Santos Escobar versus Ricochet. After Ricochet,
that should be good fun.
Shockingly beat Braun Strowman the previous week.
So I'm hearing, Ian, is that Braun Strowman couldn't control his narrative.
Oh no, not again. But I think in some way they are still trying to build towards Strowman versus Gunther, which I think will be a decent match. I think it might be quite good fun, to be perfectly honest. But I think first, I would probably see, as much as Ricochet would make sense as a babyface winner to win the tournament. We've seen Ricochet versus Gunther several times. They've had good matches, but I think Escobar maybe as like a short run feud for like a month, just to kind of clear the palate of Gunter before we get into more big chest smacking fights.
I would like to make a suggestion.
Go on.
And I forewarn you, it's a bad one, but it's something I think would be good fun.
Oh no.
Given this is the World Cup, and traditionally in a World Cup at some point in the knockout rounds, we see a penalty shootout.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Now, I'm not suggesting we see a penalty shootout because Lord knows that'd be horrid. I think we should have a penalty shootout in the form of a chopping contest. Given some of the chops that we've seen in the past couple of weeks, and with Gunter, I think that is a fair thing to request. And it'll be whoever winces the most or least gets the point.
It's like first person to fall off gets the pinfall.
Make it like gladiators, have them stand on a platform or something, and if they lose balance. Or do it on like a gymnastics balance beam. There you go, there's a dumb idea.
Oh dear Lord, no. No. Back to the idea box for that, Jeremy. That's stupid bollocks. I'm
glad I gave myself the get out of jail free by saying I'm still ill at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Also, I think we'll have the next chapter of the LA Knight Bray Wyatt goings on at the moment, because Bray's going, I didn't hurt LA Knight, and then Uncle Howdy on the screen's going, but you did.
Oh yeah, there was zero Bray Wyatt on Survivor Series. Now you mention it.
Yeah. I stupidly thought they would do something of some degree, even if it's just a quick 2-minute promo or something. But no,
just a backstage segment, like just not to steal the catchphrase, but acknowledge it.
Yeah, they've got to start building towards an actual wrestling match with Bray. I'm still intrigued by the whole sort of character thing and all that, because it's still quite captivating, and partnering him up with LA Knight's actually quite interesting, because LA Knight as a talker as well is captivating as well. It's just, where is this going? Is where I'm
What's the next premium live event?
Royal Rumble.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Based on the WWE layout here, it looks like it might be TLC.
There was no adverts of TLC at Survivor Series, and usually
now you mention it,
they usually advertise the next show at the current show. I'm
just looking on the shows.
There may be. I've read the odd bit of piece in. There may be like a small international show coming up, which might count as a premium live event. I don't know.
I mean, at this point, yeah. I mean, in fairness, like according to the Wikipedia page for Survivor Series, there's no next pay-per-view, as it were. Well, the next event technically is NXT Deadline, but yeah, NXT Deadline, then Royal Rumble. Okay, sure. I guess TLC just happens to still be listed there. Then, all right.
Yeah, they might do something special for Christmas. They might do like a Christmas Day SmackDown where Roman defends maybe against Sheamus and finish that little feud off once and for all. Possibly, I'm not sure, but yeah, no, I kind of like the fact that we've got 2 months now to the Rumble, so we've got time for things to breathe, and we're not rushing headlong into like the next match or the next premium live event immediately.
Yeah, gone are the days where there was a premium live event 2 weeks after one.
or in 2020, 1 week after SummerSlam.
That was as well, wasn't there?
It was like SummerSlam, now Payback. What?
So you're like, well, partly that's correct, but sure.
All right.
So fine. I'm just on WWE's event page, and I love occasionally just looking at the historical pay-per-views. And I'm thinking, what pay-per-view concept could one Triple H bring back now that we're in his era? And I would like to see the return of New Year's Revolution. I always thought that was a great name for a show, but they're not doing day one now, so maybe that's one way of doing it.
Yeah,
Armageddon was always a great name. You know what? Okay, it's dumb, but I bet you Triple H could make it work for one night. I think for Texas. There you go. For one night only. I mean, also Cyber Sunday was good fun, but you can't do it now with the internet.
Yeah.
But why not bring back clearly the most desired and anticipated pay-per-view name / concept ever in the history of the WWE? Fatal 4-Way.
Okay. And for that, I'm going to go full screen. Jeremy's gone now, boys and girls. He doesn't have to say the crazy ideas anymore. Oh, he can come back. He did.
Well, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to look up WWE Fatal 4-Way
it only had one event, Jeremy.
Exactly.
And I'm we're
gonna start to gradually wrap up this week's show.
Yeah.
By you trying to remember what happened at WWE's Fatal 4-Way.
I did not even watch that pay-per-view. I wasn't in wrestling again at that point. But I'm gonna say in one of the Fatal 4-Ways, it was probably John Cena, Big Show, Edge, and someone else. I don't know.
You got two of the. I'll tell you what. You got 2 of the 4 people correct in the Fatal 4-Way. So actually, you know what? Technically, okay. I'll give you a clue. There were 3 Fatal 4-Way matches on this show. 2 of them were men's. 1 was women's.
Is Jericho in one of them?
No.
Jeff Hardy.
He was on the show, but
Jeff Hardy.
No.
CM Punk?
He was in the other one, yes.
Daniel Bryan?
We're not just gonna have you naming people.
Cody Rhodes?
No, okay, I'll tell you what.
Randy Orton, Batista.
Okay. I'll tell you this way.
Undertaker.
The WWE Championship Fatal 4-Way match. Okay, we'll do it this way. The person who won the match defeated John Cena, Edge, and Randy Orton to become champion.
Big Show.
Incorrect. You have
Edge.
2 more guesses.
Oh wait, Edge. When was Fatal 4-Way?
Fatal 4-Way was June the 10th, 2010. My God, 2010.
So definitely not Edge because he had retired by then, I think.
No, he was in that show. He was in that match. So the winner defeated John Cena, Edge, and Randy Orton.
Oh, okay. CM Punk?
He was in the other Fatal 4-Way match.
Rey Mysterio.
He won the other Fatal 4-Way match.
Oh, fuck off.
It was Sheamus.
Oh. All right.
So, just to give you a quick rundown of a couple of the matches. So, Rey Mysterio beat Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hagar, Big Show, and CM Punk to win the world title.
Okay.
Apparently, The Miz defeated R-Truth to retain the United States title.
Okay.
6-person tag, The Hart Dynasty, which was David Hart Smith, D.H. Smith, Harry Smith, whatever you know him by, Natalia, and Tyson Kidd, aka TJ Wilson, defeating the Usos and Tamina.
All right.
And then the main event was Sheamus defeating John Cena, Edge, and Randy Orton for the WWE title. And in case you're curious, Jericho wrestled Evan Bourne, aka Matt Sydal.
Intercontinental?
No, just a singles match.
Oh, fair enough.
No, the IC. Here's a callback for you. The IC title match on that show was Kofi retaining against Drew McIntyre.
Oh no, that's clean face Drew McIntyre. The chosen one, Drew McIntyre. Oh no.
So there we go. So I think before we wrap up, a couple of bits of wrestling from around the world. Didn't give you any heads up for that whatsoever, Ian, but there you go.
Well, I've changed the title. There we go.
There you go. So, interesting note. Well, I say interesting note, but here is a note from the Wrestling Observer newsletter regarding one Mr. CM Punk, quoting F4WOnline.com. Dave Meltzer addressed on the latest on Punk's AEW status in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, noting the former world champion is still under contract and is being paid by the promotion. Quote, Punk as of the weekend was still under contract to AEW and being paid, and those close to him say the hold up on his being released is all on the AEW side, as he is ready and willing to move on to his next project. And also, it sounds like Punk is still going to be in the AEW Fight Forever game, and also notes that those close to the situation say when it comes to the Elite referencing Punk stuff from All Out in the Trios match last week, there is no chance, seemingly, of him coming back. And that wasn't a tease for him potentially coming back.
No, yeah, because I saw last week people were doing the sort of, it's to work now. He's definitely coming back. And it's like, if CM Punk came back, I'm just done with this. I really am done with the All Out stuff. Just let's concentrate on the new stuff, please. Please.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But as for the AEW video game thing, that was partly why I wanted to bring it up, because I know we want to eventually talk about and play it and such.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me he'll still be in the game, partly because he was on the cover, but also because Cody's still in the game. So at this point, if they've done all the work for it, just leave him in there. Like, what's it gonna hurt?
WWE have kind of done it for 2K22. I mean, probably now about a third of those wrestlers aren't in the company anymore.
Or ironically now are back in the company.
Yeah, they left, but they came back since the game came out.
I mean, look, hey, Mia Yim's come back, but Reckoning technically hasn't.
No.
Despite being the same person.
But I mean, T-Bar has evolved into Dijak again with his hard justice on NXT, big shades and a big leather trench coat, like he's some from the Matrix.
I actually do want to play GM mode. I haven't played that in a while, but they've not done it. They've not done any more updates to it, have they?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if it's because they are now starting to work on 2K23, maybe. I mean, sometimes I always think it's like, have a base game. It's like what I think they should do for things like FIFA. Have a base game and build on that. It's like make the base game like free to play and then build on the extra cool stuff for money. But anyway, that's Video Game Channel.
The last patch update per the 2K22 blog was July, apparently. Flipping heck, was it? I swear there's been one since then.
I think it featured heavily in sales as well, just Black Friday. So
yeah.
Anyway,
sorry. We're going to read this one patch note from the most recent patch. Addressed reported concerns regarding warping issues when a reversal is triggered. I have no context for what that means, but that's a funny line to end on. Good sir, before we wrap up for today, any other notes before we make a quick note regarding upcoming programming?
Nothing from me, really. Of course, if you would like to talk to us about any of the stuff that we've talked about in this episode or talk about wrestling in general, then give us one hell of a kick of an email over to bunkamania@bunkerzilla.co.uk. I'm keeping tradition going. I'm using the wrestling moves.
And as mentioned, folks, if you found us through your audio platform of choice or you found us on YouTube, thank you very much for checking us out. We hope you enjoyed the show. In terms of upcoming programs, with it coming up to the height of the festival-like period that is the holiday season, December. It's Christmas. Just sod it, Jeremy.
I mean, it's gonna be Santa Sleighs. Goldberg's gonna come out. He's gonna kill people dressed as Santa Claus. And Hulk Hogan will return as Santa with muscles. He's got muscles, Jeremy. Muscles.
So in terms of upcoming programming, just to derail that completely, we are going to try and get another podcast or two up. In terms of live shows, at this stage, we'll probably say unlikely before the beginning of next year, but not impossible. We'll see how things work out, but we're going to try and get another podcast or two up before year's end. One of those, at the very least, will more than likely be some kind of 2022 wrap-up, and we've already alluded to a few bits and bobs in that as to many things we could discuss and such. We may also, Ian, because I don't think we'd probably try and catalogue it in some way, we may try and go back through our predictions that we did a couple of months ago and see how many of those have or haven't come true. If you recall.
I don't think any of them have come true.
I mean,
maybe we should make year predictions rather than towards the end of the year.
In fairness, actually, one of the first things we should do in 23 is then go back through the predictions that we did for the last quarter of 22. That makes more sense. But either way, go on.
I mean, I did successfully predict over at the Wrestle Talks prediction side of things that Tony Khan would buy another brand, and he did. I am a soothsayer.
So we'll go through our Q4 predictions and see how they were at some point. Like I mentioned, 2022 year in review of some kind, in some way, shape, or form, will be upcoming. And who knows, we may just talk about a retro event again, or just some other subject here and there. We'll just see which ways that the winter winds blow, as it were.
Whoosh.
But on that note, thank you very much for watching and or listening. From myself, the giraffe, and me, Jeremy Graves. From him, the Dekker Dane, Mr. Iain Boulton. You've been listening to the BunkaMania Pro Wrestling Podcast. Until next time, take care and speak to you soon. Festive tidings, everyone.
Ho, ho, ho.